Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today, we're going to be looking at the Warlock. I'm going to start off with how to create a Warlock and what choices you can make. So the Warlock is the only class at the moment whose main stat is Charisma. There are plenty of other classes in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that use Charisma as their ability modifiers for their spells or abilities. But at the moment, it's just the Warlock. So for the Warlock, we get a choice of two subclasses. We choose a subclass immediately. The Fiend or the Great Old One. With the Fiends, we get... The difference between them, we get a different choice of spells. And the Fiend also gets the Dark One's Blessing. So when you basically kill a creature, you get an extra temporary hit points of Charisma modifier plus level. So if your Charisma modifier is 3 and your level is 1, you get 4 temporary hit points, 3 plus 1. In terms of class features, the proficiencies, we've got Wisdom and Charisma saving throws and Light Armor and Simple Weapon. So there's no medium armor here, no shields. So we are going to be relying on Dexterity for our armor class unless we use a spell. Warlock spell slots, we only get 2 spell slots. Now, Warlocks cast spells uniquely compared to the other classes. So they get many fewer spell slots. However, the spell slots are all of the same level, and they replenish on a short rest rather than a long rest. Now if we go to the Great Old One, there's actually no subclass feature. So at the moment, in early access, it's basically pointless taking the Great Old One. Right now, you should be taking the Fiend. If you're not taking the Fiend, you're kind of making a mistake. Not completely, because you do get different spells available here. So for the Great Old One, we get Tasha's Hideous Laughter and Dissonant Whispers, which are both pretty cool spells, because they both do damage and have a second effect if the saving throw isn't passed. So Tasha's Hideous Laughter will leave someone prone and incapacitated. Dissonant Whispers will make someone frightened, both of which will take out an enemy for a round of combat. So it's not all bad if you take the Great Old One. But I'm going to go for the Fiend. Cantrips. Eldritch Blast. This is what you take the Warlock for. It's pretty much the highest damaging cantrip, and it's force damage, so it won't get resisted. And also, the Warlock at level 2 can get some features that increase the effectiveness of the Eldritch Blast, which we'll get to later. For the other cantrip, probably don't need another damaging cantrip. Eldritch Blast is going to be your damaging cantrip. If it's not, then there's basically no point playing the Warlock. You may as well play something else. So what we're going to take instead. Don't take True Strike. I keep saying it. Don't ever do it. Maybe you could take Poison Spray. It does potentially a bit more damage, but it's short range. Mage Hand, probably someone else in the party with Mage Hand. Friends, advantage on Charisma checks. That's okay. But you've got to know that it's coming up. And sometimes you don't know that you're going to be having a Charisma check, and you don't necessarily have the opportunity to cast this before then. Blade Ward, Gain Resistance, or Chill Touch. 1d8 necrotic damage. Cannot regain hit points. I'd probably take Chill Touch just in case I come across something that's healing, or come across undead. Let's take that. Now spells. This is the other difference with Warlocks and their spells and spellcasting, is that they get a very small choice of spells. So what I choose here is all the spells I'm going to know for level 1. Next level I get 1 more spell to add to the list that I can use my spell slots to cast. So we need to be pretty careful with what we choose. So Armor of Agathis. Spectral Frost covers you, gain 5 temporary hit points, pretty cool, and deal 5 cold damage to any creature that hits you with a melee attack. That could be quite useful if you send your Warlock in ranged, or if you just accidentally get attacked, and gives you extra hit points. Not bad, although it kind of overlaps with the the Fiend's subclass feature. Arms of Hadar, or Hadar, I don't really know how to say it. Targets take 2d6 necrotic and can't take reactions. That's pretty cool, because this will be everyone within 10 feet, and if it works, there'll be no reactions taken. I think I'm going to take that, because this is, as far as I'm aware, unique to the Warlock. This isn't a spell that the wizards can currently get in early access. So the other spell, which we choose, Hex, is pretty good. Requires concentration though. Curse a creature, deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage when you hit it with an attack. Thankfully, uses a bonus action to cast. I'm going to take Hex. Hex is pretty cool. Going to come to then the race. There's a fair bit of choice for race. Now, so far, I've completely ignored the tieflings in all the other classes. They get charisma +2. Other advantages of tieflings: hellish resistance, so that all have fire resistance, resistance to fire damage, and dark vision. And they get a cantrip. We can't change this. This is just set in stone. So there are 3 different types of tiefling subraces. We've got the Asmodeus tiefling, which gives us intelligence +1. Mistopheles tiefling, which gives us also intelligence +1, but a different cantrip. And the Zariel tiefling, which gives us strength +1 and charisma +2. But the thaumaturgy cantrip again. I do believe they get different spells at level 3, which I'm not going to go through in this video. That might be for another video. So tiefling is more than possible and quite a good choice for a warlock. Drow, we've got charisma +1 and dexterity +2. We're needing dexterity for our armor class, so this could work very well as well. Good thing about them, they get fate ancestry, so can't be put to sleep. Normal racial speed, superior dark vision, and a few proficiencies that we don't currently have, which could be useful. Different types, there's not any difference at the moment, and dancing lights cantrip. Human, I wouldn't really take human, not for this. We want as much charisma as possible and dexterity. We don't need these other stats so much. Githyanki, intelligence and strength, not going to take them. Dwarf, constitution and wisdom, or constitution and strength, not for a warlock. Half elf is another very good choice, because we get quite a few options here. First of all, we get charisma +2, brilliant, we want that. And then we get +1 to 2 different abilities of our choice, which I would suggest constitution, dexterity, slightly higher armor class potentially, and more hit points. And we get, from being a half elf, we get dark vision, and we can't be put to sleep. As far as I'm concerned, the difference between human and half elf for a warlock, the half elf wins out every single time, because we only get 2 fewer ability points, but we gain immunity to sleep, we gain dark vision. If we choose a high half elf, we get an extra cantrip out of any of these. And as a wood half elf, we get the proficiency in stealth and a faster moving speed. Plus, still, fair ancestry and dark vision. So I'm definitely going to be playing, I was about to say wood elf. I might go for tieflings. I haven't gone for tieflings. Quick look at halfling. This could work. Dexterity +2, charisma +1, lightfoot halfling. And we also get the proficiency in stealth. Unfortunately, the base facial speed is 25. Probably don't want that. I feel like the half elf wins out over the halfling. I'd suggest a half elf if you want a bit more customization on your character, or a tiefling just because we get fire resistance and charisma +2, plus a few extra bonuses as we level up. The downside to using the tiefling is that they either get intelligence +1 or strength +1. We're not really going to be using intelligence or strength, so I'm going to go for the half elf, because I can choose to have extra constitution dexterity. And then high elf or wood elf, or drow half elf. Sorry, I missed that out earlier. Here we get the dancing lights cantrip. It's probably not as good, because the high half elf doesn't have it. I mean, unless of course, for role-playing reasons, you might want to choose a drow. Completely up to you. But in terms of playing the game and what spells you get, as a high elf, you get to choose dancing lights anyway. Maybe you want to pick something else. So what am I? Warlock. We've already got damaging, 2 damaging cantrips. However, acid splash or ray of frost could be really quite useful, because ray of frost, even if it doesn't hit, causes ice on the ground, which can make creatures fall prone. And acid splash decreases their armor class if they're inside the acid. I'm going to go for ray of frost. I quite like that. High half elf. Sorry, quick look at the wood half elf. Extra, ton of bit of extra speed and proficiency in stealth. Nah, I'm going to go for the high half elf this time. Dexterity, constitution. Change that. I don't want minor illusion. I want ray of frost. Right, coming to the abilities. What don't we want? We don't want intelligence. We've got right. Charisma. I'm going to put it down to 16. I don't want a negative modifier there, as I've always talked about. Look at that. We got 2+3s and +2, which will then leave us at level 4, probably to put +2 into charisma. Or maybe take one of the magic initiates. Anyway, so this would be my recommendation here. What else could we do? Let's just show you what other possibilities there are. If we want to get rid of, have some minuses. Alright, I wouldn't want that. Maybe we'd actually do that. So if you want to take 2 abilities down to 8, you have -1 modifiers, you can get an extra +1 modifier for either dexterity or constitution. Oh, no. I'm going to do that. Is that the right choice? So the extra dexterity will give us extra armor class and go higher in the initiative order. Having high constitution will increase hit points and constitution saving throws. I'm going to leave it like this. And name, oh no, appearance. I said I was going to use males for the last 3. So there we are, there you are. Don't you look cool? Don't want me to have, I want to be CVG. Insight and religion. Let's have a look. Stealth and deception. Yeah, I think I want stealth and deception. Arcane is pretty good, and these are quite good proficiencies for early access. And then we'll venture forth. This is the level up screen for a Warlock at level 2. So before we get to any choices, we obviously get more hit points. Class features, Warlock spell slot gained. This is useful because at level 1 we only get 1 spell slot, level 2 we get 2. It doesn't go up very quickly, the number of spell slots a Warlock has, because they recover on a short rest. Now, interestingly, we get these eldritch invocations. So there's 2 choices we get to make as a Warlock, and each of them has a different outcome, different thing that they can do. I'm going to go through all of them relatively quickly. It's Agonizing Blast, adds your charisma modifier to Eldritch Blast. If you're going to be using Eldritch Blast at all, take this. It does extra damage, basically 3 damage. At the moment, adding 3 damage. Not loads, but it's force damage, which doesn't get resisted in the game so far. Armor Shadows, you can cast Mage Armor on yourself at will without expending a spell slot. If you're not planning on wearing any armor, this is amazing. You can cast Mage Armor, not have to worry about armor, and then you'll have an armor class of 13 plus your dexterity modifier, so in my case it would be 16. If at any point you're going to get some armor, then this might not be worth taking, because Mage Armor only works if you're not wearing armor, but it's a decent pick. Beast Speech, you can cast Speak on Animals at will without expending a spell slot. This is right. I mean, I like a lot of these invocations because they allow the Warlock to get something unique, a bit different, lots of utility, and that maybe is restricted otherwise to some other classes. But Beast Speech could be okay. Regarding influence, you gain proficiency in deception and persuasion. This, if you've already got proficiency in even one of those, do not take this, it's not worth it. Devil's Sight, you can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical. This will be useful if you use the darkness spell, because then only you will be able to see in it, because when there is magical darkness, creatures with dark vision can't see inside it. Fiendish Vigor, you cast False Life on yourself at will as a first level spell, so you get an extra 5 temporary hit points. I'm going to be using Aid, I think, from my Cleric, so I'm not going to take this, but if you're not going to be using Aid, this is decent. You get free 5 extra hit points, but also got to bear in mind that with this Warlock Patron ability, I'm getting temporary hit points anyway, so this isn't necessarily the best to take. Mask of Many Faces, you can cast this guy's self at will without expending a spell slot. Again, this is good, doesn't take up one of your spells known, so gives you some utility outside of combat. Repelling Blast, when you hit a creature with Eldritch Blast, you can push the creature up to 15 feet away from you. I am going to take this on top of Agonizing Blast, so I'm specialising my Warlock to be having Eldritch Blast to do really well. This is good because there's quite a few occasions in the game where knocking someone off a ledge will either make them prone, cause some damage, even just outright kill them, because like the fall below is just too far. So I am going to take this. D for 5 Fates, once per long rest you can cast Bane without a Warlock spell slot. This is alright. One downside to this is it's once per long rest, whereas all the other things you can just do at will without expending a spell slot. And the Warlock usually recovers things on a short rest, so something that only you can do once per long rest isn't as good. And Bane is actually, as a spell, is fine, but it requires concentration, and I want to be using Hex quite a lot of the time, so I don't want to take this, but I don't think any of these are actually particularly bad. This is probably not even the weakest. Whatever you want to take, there are no bad options really here, because lots of these are spells at will. Next up, we get to choose a new spell. I think every level of the Warlock you get one new spell to your spells known, and this is the choice at the moment. I'm not going to go over these really. I'll spend another time. I'm going to pick Halt. So I don't think any other characters have Halt. And then one interesting thing for a Warlock and some of the other classes is because you only have a limited number of spells, when you level up you can replace one of your spells. So I've got the option here to choose one of the spells I already know and then replace it with one of the other options I have. This is useful because when we level up we're going to eventually get choice to high level spells and we can swap out some spells. Anyway, I don't want to add anything there. I've got everything I want. So yeah, that's it for the Warlock at level 2. I want to try and show you the Eldritch Blast with the Eldritch invocations. So I'm just going to open that up. So I'm going to attack this closest one. It's getting a bit close, right? Going to be in a bit of danger if I let it get too close. There's a hit, and it gets knocked back. And let's have a quick look at the damage. So down here, we did force damage for 7 from 1d10, but then also an extra 3 force damage because of my charisma modifier. This will stack with Hex, so you can start doing even more damage to the enemies. And there we are. It's further away, bit of damage done, and then I can jump and run away so I won't get hurt. I just want to quickly show here that with Eldritch Blast we get 9 damage, then the Agonizing Blast another 3, and I had Hex on Taman, who took an extra 5 damage. So in total, that particular blast I did 17 damage, which was enough to kill him. He's already lost a few hit points, but even so 17 is nearly enough to kill a whole enemy in one go, which is pretty decent. So I scored a Agonizing Blast critical hit onto this person called Zakrug. I managed to do 2d6, which ended up 2d10 damage, ended up at being 16, 3 from Agonizing Blast, and then necrotic damage. 2d6 is 12. It's almost the highest amount of damage I can do, just 4 lower than maximum. But in the end I did 31 damage, which obviously relies upon the fact that I've hexed this creature. I've also got Agonizing Blast and I got a critical hit. So this won't be happening too often, but when you've got advantage on an attack, the chance of a critical hit is much higher than if you don't have advantage. And I had advantage because I was at higher ground. For the Warlock at level 3, there isn't much of a choice apart from spells, but let's go through everything. So we get improved Warlock spell slot. What that means is that previously, when the spells were cast, they were cast at level 1. But now the Warlock spell slot is at level 2. There are 2 spell slots, both of them are level 2. We can't cast anything at level 1 anymore. It's impossible. And we get Pact Boon, just 1 out of 1. Pact to the Chain. Gain the service of a familiar, a face spirit that takes the form you want. This can be an amp, an animal, imp, or quasit. This is really good because the imp and quasit can be invisible and really good scouts and can even do a little bit of damage. Then we get 1 new choice of spell. And just like with the wizard, there's some really good choices here. I'd say Mirror Image is good because you don't need concentration and you can get your Warlock into potentially what's something that's slightly dangerous, situations that are dangerous, not have to worry so much. And also Misty Step, just like with the wizard, this can be amazing. The Warlock can Misty Step and then use Eldritch Blast from a distance or new space from high ground, get out of danger. I'm going to choose, also Shatter's quite good, but you've got to remember with Shatter, if you've got an ally in the AoE radius, then they're going to take damage as well. It's not as useful as on a wizard, evocation wizard. So I'm going to take Mirror Image or Misty Step. Which one? I don't know. Let's just say Misty Step for now. Maybe, let's have a look. Do I want to replace any of my spells? I took Command Halt. I don't really want that. It's going to kick that out. And I can choose another spell instead. And I'm going to choose Mirror Image. So now, my 4 spells will be Armor of Agathis, Hex, Mirror Image, and Misty Step. And that's it. No other choices. I want to quickly show you the Find Familiar ability from the Warlock. So we've got the normal familiars here, which are the animals or the beasts. We've also got 2 extra ones here. So Find Familiar Quasit and Find Familiar Imp. Let's get the Quasit out. There it is. If we click on it, a few things. It can dash, hide, and jump and disengage. Also, invisibility. So now I can control the Quasit and scout ahead. Because sometimes you can't scroll too far away, not sometimes, you can't scroll too far away from your characters. But with the closet, when I'm following it, I can actually look further away now. And since it's invisible, it's probably not going to get seen or detected. So you can scout out places ahead of time. It's actually really useful. Other things the closet can do is just use its claws, do some damage, or try and scare something to frighten the creature once per short rest. And that's going to be decent if it works. If it doesn't, well, you know, it's the same as spells and things. Not everything's going to work. But if it does, it takes a creature out for a round the fight for a round. Right, let's get back to the Warlock. And this time, now it doesn't require a spell slot, so we can keep doing it. Go to the Imp. Quite similar, except this time it can fly rather than just jump. And look at the distance it can fly. Just in one bonus action that was. You can go all that way. It can also turn invisible, so it can be used for the same purpose. It's got 10 hit points. It's a few more than the Quasit. But it also has Sting. So 1d4 plus 3 damage, and potentially, I'm guessing if it fails a Constitution saving throw, an additional 1d6. This does a bit more damage. But it can't frighten anything, and the claws 1d4. There's no real reason to use the claws over the Sting. Sting does more damage, even if it doesn't do the additional poison damage. So yeah, both of them are great scouts. Perhaps the Imp is a little bit better. It's got a few more hit points. The actual attack is better. And the Quasit can frighten an enemy. But yeah, there we are. This is the Pact of the Chain. The Pact boon. Useful. It's good. Great scouts. Can act as a distraction in combat as well. Maybe soak up a hit or two. So yeah, the Warlock, level 3, gets a decent level up. For the Warlock at level 4, especially with Agonizing Blast, +2 ability score into Charisma is going to be the way to go. You're more likely to hit, and you do a little bit of extra damage. And what's not to like about that, to be honest? However, it's not as important maybe as some of the other classes, because Charisma doesn't affect much else apart from the social interactions. And you can make your Warlock proficient in some of the Charisma skills anyway. Anyway, carrying on, looking at these other feats. Athlete, probably not. Defensive Duelist, maybe. But hopefully you've got other things to protect you, such as spells. So mirror Image. Armor of Agathis would be helpful anyway, so you don't need such high armor class. Dual Wielder, don't tend to be dual wielding, so you don't need that. Great Weapon Master, no. Wouldn't do that. Can't get heavily armoured, already lightly armoured. Magic Initiates, maybe Magic Initiate Warlock if you want more spells. Because Warlocks don't get a great choice of spell, but you can only pick a first level spell and 2 cantrips. You've already got Eldritch Blast, so you've only got a choice of a few other cantrips. However, since your spellcasting modifier is Charisma and you have a limited number of spell slots, this isn't necessarily that bad. Of course, you get Magic Initiate Wizard or Cleric if you want more cantrips, different variety of spells. Martial, I don't know. Mobile. Hopefully, you're not in too much danger. Plus, you can always use Misty Step to get away if you really need to. Moderately armored, that could be worth taking, because then you can use a shield and have medium armor, which will increase your AC by at least by 2 for the shields. Medium armor, maybe 1 armor class higher, maybe 2 depending on which medium armor you have, because you still get some dexterity bonus with the medium armor. So there's one medium armor that has, I think it's the Githyanki plate, half plate, that would have armor class of 15 plus dexterity bonus, so that could be at 17 plus a shield, make it up to 19, which is quite high for a spellcasting class. Shield Master, no. Skilled, if you want to have more proficiencies. Tough, maybe think about that, but to be honest, the Warlocks have enough access to temporary hit points, that's probably not much of a worry. Weapon Master, probably not, unless you're really wanting to use a specific weapon. But most of the time you're using Eldritch Blast anyway, so picking a feat to choose a proficiency with a weapon, you're not really going to use it that much. So yeah, all in all, for the Warlock, extra attack bonus and extra damage for your Eldritch Blast is going to be probably the best choice you can make. Yeah, a bit boring, just like all my other class videos. At level 4, like, go and get this. But yeah, +1 Charisma modifier. Never going to go wrong with it. Okay, time for final thoughts on the Warlock and the subclasses. So before I get to the subclasses, generally thoughts on the Warlock. I feel like in combat, its mainstay of damage is going to be Eldritch Blast. There we are. With the spell slots used for utility or maybe defense, one of the spell slots is almost always going to be used with Hex if you want to be doing maximum damage. For some people it might be a bit boring, but I've got to say I quite like seeing decent numbers almost every time I attack. Plus with the Eldritch Invocation of Repelling Blast and Agonizing Blast, it's really, the damage really adds up. A couple of downsides is we only get one short rest per long rest, and with Arcane Recovery, wizards can recover not all their spell slots, but they can recover 2 level 1 spell slots or level 2 spell slot. And considering that wizards start with a higher number of spell slots in the first place, warlocks get many fewer spell slots, which is why you're going to have to be relying on Eldritch Blast most of the time. Saying that, the Pact boon we get Find Familiar for free with the Imp or Quasit, which is good. Then onto the subclasses, we've either got the Fiend or the Great Old One. At the moment, the Fiend is going to be winning out because we get, with the Fiend, we do get the Dark One's Blessing, which increases, gives you temporary hit points if you kill a target. Whereas the Great Old One, we don't get any innate ability. The one difference between them are the spells chosen, and the Great Old One does have access to 2 spells that at the moment I don't think any other class has access to, being Dissonant Whispers and Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which are normally quite commonly picked spells for bards. So if you want to get some unique spells, you would pick the Great Old One. Otherwise, if you're not really after those spells, there's really no reason at the moment to pick them. So at the moment, my top pick is going to be the Fiend, because we get this innate bonus when we kill something, we get temporary hit points, which is going to be useful, because it's not too unlikely that you won't be killing something. You're quite likely to kill something in a battle, and so you'll be getting these temporary hit points. And even if you use Aid at the beginning of the day, which I tend to like to do, those hit points can run out and you can regain some. So yeah, Warlock's quite unique. The only short rest class, as it were, at the moment. They get access to some spells that none of the other classes do. They get a nice Find Familiar bonus. And something I haven't mentioned so far much are the Eldritch Invocations. At the moment we only get to pick 2. And if you want to be doing more damage, there are only really 2 to pick: Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast. But there are lots of utility options. One of the great things about the Warlock is that they do get lots of options, and so you can customize your Warlock far more and far better than you can with almost any other class. Even though other classes like Wizards can choose their spells, so can Warlocks, and they get some different spells, and they get the Eldritch Invocations. So you can really make your Warlock a bit more unique compared to maybe one Wizard compared to another. The only main difference is going to be their subclass, whereas for Warlocks you've got different subclasses and different Eldritch Invocations, on top of different races, which can also happen for all the other classes, of course. So yeah, that's been a quick rundown of the Warlock. If you've enjoyed the video or found anything interesting or useful, please do leave a like. Consider giving me a comment, whether I've missed something out, whether you disagree with something, and all subscriptions will be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you in the next one. This bit. I don't think any of these are particularly bad. Blessings or attributes, or my game's crashed. Yay.